Hello, my name is Eric Wade. I'm an MLT ambassador, and this PD is all about using the outdoors and agriculture to engage students, specifically using technology along with the outdoors and agriculture. So it's kind of a mixture of integration of the outdoors and agriculture, but also kind of using all of that combined together to engage students. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with just kind of an introduction of agriculture and outdoor education. We're going to talk about the integration and the resources kind of at the same time. We're going to look at the idea of the integration piece and then look at the resource page that I've created that goes along with that to kind of help you out. So without further ado, let's get started and start by looking at the introduction of what is all of this. So I will be the first to admit that, agriculture, the outdoors, computers, tablets, those three things kind of together can be kind of a recipe for disaster. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is not, you can't integrate those three into with each other. So just because you may not be able to take your computer outside and work with work with that outside and type or do whatever, gather data, doesn't mean you can't gather data and then use technology to help you organize that data or to experiment with things that you may not be able to do inside of a regular classroom, or even outside. Like, it just may take because it takes too long. So there's lots of ways that we can do this that are safe, so that we don't ruin our technology, but also so that we can integrate the technology into it. So agriculture, we're going to these are the kind of ways I'm going to kind of refer to these topics here. So agriculture, right? Anything grown or harvested. It can be normal farming, like you would think of, like corn and soybeans and all that kind of stuff. But agriculture also kind of encompasses dairy and alpacas and fiber and goats and cheeses and things like that. So there's a lot more to it than just the kind of traditional, what we think about agriculture as in people growing things. It is a much larger space than that. So around your building, around your school, you may have a garden space. If you don't, get in touch with me and I'll help you get started on one. I've started lots of school gardens before. You could be a town garden, a green space, some woods adjacent to the school, whatever. It's lots of things. Or if you don't have any of that stuff and you live in a city and you don't have any local park or anything that's kind of green space available to you, then local farms are a fantastic way to get out into to see what's going on in terms of agriculture. And then the outdoors is, we're talking about everything outside. Parks, forests, woods, parks, green spaces, rivers, lakes, oceans, whatever you can, as long as it's not in a building. Everything you can think of as long as it's outside. So let's get started here. This will be the bulk of this PD is on integration pieces. And so I built this kind of like a website. So if you're in play mode, you can click here and click there, click back and click on the icons, and it'll take you to the resource page. So that's how I'm going to kind of move through this. So let's talk about spreadsheets first. So the spreadsheets are a fantastic way of keeping track of data that you collect while outside, either doing tree surveys or counting seeds. One of my favorite activities to do kind of with middle school kids and then younger groups of kids is to take pumpkins that we've grown in the garden, measure the circumference, cut them open, and then count the seeds, make piles of 10 or whatever goal you have in terms of whatever goal there is for the lower grade student in terms of counting. And then keep track of that data over time using a spreadsheet. So you can set the spreadsheet up to be able to you can write the algorithm for it to do the average or look for the highest or the lowest or whatever. And then keep track of that data over time and use it to as evidence to draw conclusions about, does the circumference of the pumpkin, the bigger the circumference, mean more seeds or less seeds or the same amount of seeds, or it's hard to tell. One of my favorite activities to do, but it requires the use of a spreadsheet because it's easier to organize your data. So you can also use the spreadsheet for paying attention to crop rotations. You can do tree inventory around your school if you wanted to. Germination rates are so a big part of this, over historical data in terms of soil quality or data analysis in terms of like crop yields, all sorts of crazy stuff that you can do with this. The spreadsheets are a great way for students to get used to keeping their data organized and being able to organize that data in a way that makes sense to them. So the next one is looking at computer-aided design. My favorite is Sketchup. So the idea here is that you would use Sketchup, which this isn't linked, but I will make sure it gets linked. That Sketchup is a way of building 3D models of different places. So this was a garden that I built just for today, with a greenhouse and then raised beds and then some places for people to sit and do their work. This is also a fantastic way of designing an outdoor classroom, or even creating a map of your garden space, a scale map. Everything has dimensions on it, so you can be able to tell what's going on. You can write on this. You can put text on here. SketchUp is an amazing tool, and it's a really fantastic way to either plan and model something you're going to create, or take something you've already created and inventory it, measure it, make sure it's what you want it to be. You can also, there's a great library, so you can put stock images into these, so you can put plants and different things in here. You can use it to plan what you're going to grow in your garden space. You could use it to plan a trail map. There's 100,000 things you could do with SketchUp that would integrate well into the outdoors and agriculture. The next one is a big one. Citizen science is so huge. It's such a great way of getting kids outside, getting people involved in the scientific process. I actually did a PD on citizen science. If you follow this link, it'll take you to the YouTube channel, to the YouTube page with that on there, and this will take you to the slide deck that has a huge resource of different citizen science projects that you could do. But this by itself is just a fantastic way of getting kids outside to do science. But also, if you go through and watch the PD, citizen science isn't just about science. It really can be integrated across the curriculum in multiple ways. So the next one is using simulations, which again, there's a asynchronous PD on this that you're welcome to watch, and the slide deck that goes with it. But a simulation is a way of getting data about something that you would take you so much time to be able to do on your own. So one of the examples is this right here, which is from a simulation site called Gizmos, which you have 3 different variables here. You have the amount of light, you have the amount of water, and you have the heat that's being put here for seed germination. So you pick your seed, you put it in. So it's A, and A, or B, B, or whatever. And you can change the amount of light. So you can have 3 bulbs, 2 bulbs, 1 bulb, or no bulbs on. You can change the amount of water, and you can change the heat. And now you can actually test which is the best way to germinate seeds. So, honestly, like, students are always so surprised by this. They always just assume that every single seed needs light to be able to germinate, but then you remind them that the seeds are underground. So this right here, and there's lots of other kind of outdoorsy pieces of this too. This is something that would take so long to do in your classroom, and just so many ways that the data could be, messed up and not be accurate in any way. So with the simulation, you change the variable and it runs through, number of days, you can count your sprouts in here. It'll tell you right there. And you can use that data to decide about germination in terms of variables that might control germination or impede germination, depending on how it works. So simulations are great. There are so many simulations. The slide deck has a resource slide dedicated just to simulations that I've found that work really, really well. I encourage you to watch it. It's really great. So there's the first 4. These are kind of the STEM-focused ones. The next ones are more about the humanities. So let's look at this one. This is journaling. So journaling by itself, going outside and writing things down, is great. And you can bring, if you have a computer that you're allowed to bring outside, you can have students type instead, or you can have them write and then bring it back in and kind of put their thoughts on a doc of some sort. But one of the cool things to do with this is to add in a digital photography piece to it, right? Not only do you have students journaling whatever they might see, whether it's an observation or looking at a tree or doing whatever, discussing how whatever topic you have. I don't need to get into it. But you can also include some digital photography. And if you have kids doing field sketching in any sort of way, following this website right here will take you to a way to take that 2-dimensional sketch and turn it into a 3-dimensional image, which you can then put into a Docker or whatever you wanted to do with it. In fact, if you wanted to learn more, this link right here will take you to a PD that some other folks did that are part of MLTI that will kind of explain how that whole thing works. But journaling is fantastic. Like, it's a really great tool, but it can absolutely be focused on outdoors and agriculture in many, many, many ways. All right, so the next one is animation, and specifically telling a story. So animation is great, but it can be, you can use animation to tell a story, right? That's the whole point of every Disney Pixar movie that ever existed. So you can use animation as part of that storytelling process, and it could be something that has to do with, bees, for instance, right? You could have a story about a bee and have the bee animated in there. But you can also create, water cycles, carbon cycles, right? You can create all these things that have to do with, humanities as well, like butterfly migration, looking at different countries and where they go, how a bee travels or where it travels from. There's some really great things that fit well into agriculture and outdoor ed that can be animated by students. In fact, this link right here will take you to another MLTI resource that will talk about how to create animations in Google Slides. So animations are great, absolutely fantastic. Kids love them. They're really fun to play with. The next one is social studies. So kind of a social studies focus using digital mapping. This is using Google Earth or ArcGIS. You can create digital maps of outdoor areas. So you can then use those maps in some way. So for instance, I measured this trail that I built at my, I planned on building, but it came to this job before it could be completed. This was the kind of a map I built of where a trail was going to go. This is on Google Earth, and it describes the distance that it would travel from the beginning to the end. You can use this for mapping. You can use this to design on. You can build on this. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff. You could even go as far in ArcGIS, if you have ArcGIS Pro, to take a SketchUp image that you created and plop it down into Google Earth, and it would be there as part of it. It's really quite fantastic. So you can use this for all sorts of different ways. But digital mapping, your mapping is a big piece of a social studies curriculum. You can use that mapping to do tree surveys, or look at updating a park or a green space, or do it for planning a school garden or a trail system, whatever you want to do. But that mapping is really fantastic. So then we'll look at virtual tours. So it is, I never had the money as a teacher to go on a trip to the Great Barrier Reef, right? So there's virtual reality tours of like the Amazon, of the Great Barrier Reef, of places that are outside, but it's not getting kids outside, right? Like, that's the kind of the point of this is, how do we get students outside participating in things? And VR is great for taking you to a place you've never seen before and may never go. But the other thing that is really fantastic about this is students can create virtual reality, and using a 3D camera, or an iPhone that has a LiDAR camera on it. The newer ones have LiDAR cameras. So you can create VR experiences for other people and give them so that they can experience whatever it is. So for instance, if your students built a school garden, for instance, or they built a trail system or an outdoor classroom or a greenhouse or whatever, and you want to be able to show that off to the world, but you want to be able to have it be virtual reality, you could absolutely build that in here and get kids outside actually creating these environments, not just consuming them. This PD right here focuses on integrating virtual reality into the classroom. And this click right here will take you to kind of a tutorial on CoSpaces, which is a great way of building a virtual reality environment. So that's it for the humanities. And I did want to touch on, we call them allied arts, but other schools call them different things, but like the arts and music and health and technology and those kind of classes. So last but not least, let's look at the allied arts here. So start with a little art. So macro photography is the idea of taking pictures of objects, but very, very close up. This is a picture that I took with my camera of sunflower last summer. So a macro feature, they're on almost every camera. You can use a macro feature in different ways. Some of them are really great at getting super, super close up. Others you need to kind of, they're not as good, but you can still take a macro picture with it. This is a fantastic way to get kids outside looking at not just objects, like what do they see, but looking at objects in a very small kind of specific area. Like look at bark, really look at bark and take a picture of that bark. Look at the way that the seeds are organized in the sunflower, or look at the pistil and stamen of a tulip, right? And get in there and take pictures of those things. Really fantastic. It's really great. It doesn't work very well on a camera like on an iPad. They don't really have that macro lens, so you really do need like a camera. But that's not to say that you can't use an iPad or a phone of some sort to take macro pictures. They're just going to be a little bit further out. But the idea of a macro is that it's taking pictures of something, that looking at a very small detail of an object. So you can absolutely do it with a different camera. It just won't be like this close like my picture is. Playing with robots here, I always love the idea of being able to set my robot out in my garden and let it plant for me. Not that I don't enjoy planting, but just the idea of kind of integration of technology into my garden space. So one of the things that we did instead was, rather than, I didn't have the robot to take out into the garden. Like, I didn't have that to do my planting for me. So we built one that was the authentic kind of experience around building a garden space and then coding the robot to do the planting for us in a virtual model or in a simulation or in a model of some sort, not actually going out and building. So we just, basically what we did was we built the garden space to scale with the size of the robot, and then coded it so they would go through and plant our seeds for us. Really fun. If you have the capacity, absolutely build a robot and then send me a picture of it. I want to see a robot that plants your gardens for you. I think that'd be super awesome. Next one is more for music. So the Cornell School of Ornithology has a vast, and I mean vast, library of bird calls on its website, which is right here if you click there, but also on its mobile app, that you can take students outside and have them sit quietly, and just listen, right? Just be able to listen to birds and bird calls and be able to identify the birds based on the bird call. You can either do, you could play the sound beforehand and try to listen for it, or listen for the sound and then come back inside and try to identify it, or do it while you're outside. If you have your phone, you can listen to it. But one of the great things about the mobile app is that if you turn the microphone on so it'll hear it, it will listen for the bird call and identify it for you right on the app. It's pretty quite amazing. But there's the website there. It's absolutely worth taking a look in terms of listening. It's really quite fantastic. And then last but not least, more of a health focus here is, where does our food come from, right? Which, obviously, like, I would love to be able to take kids on tours of farms all the time, but that's not going to happen. So there's other ways to do this, especially using like a Zoom or a Google Meet. You can have virtual tours, if you will, of farms around Maine. I know I've been working with an alpaca farm in Unity, Northern Solstice Farm, that will give free free Zoom tours of their alpacas and their alpaca farm to students around the state. It is a fantastic resource that they're doing for the world, and it really is they do a really, really great job of it. But you can absolutely video chat with someone, with a farmer, instead of being able to go there. And that kind of gets you to that point of, where does my food come from? Where does fiber come from? Where does it all begin? And how does it get from there to my table? So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to email me anytime. I'll be happy to help out if you have any technology questions or integration ideas. Follow me on Twitter here. And if you would like to, you're welcome to click on this link. It will take you to a short little quiz with 2 questions. Well, 1 question, really. A yes, no question. And then in the thank you box at the end of it will be a link to a contact hour that you just type your name in, and you'll be able to print it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.